NextGen TCG. I am your host, Tetra Ninja Nick, and I have my co-host with me, fresh from Card Party, Zach Browning, Gem Mint Pokemon. We are absolutely failing at our schedule of a bi-weekly podcast, but every 3 weeks is we're gonna get there. We will try to get back to a bi-weekly schedule. We got a lot going on right now. I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. So I clinically diagnosed, so I had started medication for that. So that's been a little bit of a transition for me. Zach, as always, has some things going on in the background, sales, deep into the hobby because he does this full time. But like I said earlier, he recently got back from Card Party. So this was the second run, reprint of Card Party, part 2. So tell us, Zach, how was it?
It is literally my favorite show of the year. Like, if you go to one show, like, make it Card Party. Like, I used to say it was Worlds. It's now Card Party. Like, Pat Flynn is just a genius when it comes to organize everything, making it about the experience, the attendee. It's less about, like, you're going for the vendors or the event, this and that. It's like, it's literally you're walking into Disneyland and you're just enjoying all these topics. And, big shout out to Dan Patrick Norton. I mean, awesome, right-hand man to Pat, helping out with the ideas, the editing, just developing all that. Some people don't realize how involved Daniel is with all that. And so that team of people, like, you walk in, they have like a big like pack, like swimming pool where when you open packs, you throw your wrappers in there. It's like, not only does it help like recycling stuff, you get to see how many packs are open throughout the whole weekend, and you get like a foot or 2 feet of packs. Like, that's just nuts. You have a whole vendor hall. You got a place where you can play and trade. They have a bulk alley place where you can go through. You can go through and sort bulk. And when you get bulk, you can put bulk in. And he literally just goes above and beyond. I absolutely loved it.
Bulk, all the bulk. One day we'll make it down to the West Coast again, and we'll go to Card Party. You've been to so many shows. You've probably bought a lot of stuff before. What is your most memorable purchase at a card show?
Oh my gosh, most memorable purchase. I'd say the most memorable things I leave card shows with is going to vendor booths that, like, because a lot of the vendors are at every show. And let's say, hey, Zach, like, I saved this error card because I know you love error cards. I set this aside for you. I found this when I was at my local place. I knew you would want this. And I'll still pay them like the market for it. Usually we don't haggle on price and stuff. It's a $20 card. Hey, I'll give you $20. One, I really appreciate them looking out for me. And two, I'm willing to pay them fair market. It's a collection card. But those are seriously like the best pieces. And every time I see it, I'm like, dude, like, you thought of me? Like, you literally saved that? And it's happened probably 20 times. A couple people have done it several times. And oh my gosh, I'm trying to shout him out. The old card shop. Yes, the old card shop. I was like, which name am I going to go by here? And so he's always wearing the cool Magic card hat. And, there's been 2 or 3 shows. He's got some awesome error cards. It's that is like, how can you ask for more out of a show? It feels so included like that.
I've only been to one card show, and that's the Toronto one where I dropped off all my cards.
How long were you there for?
Literally in and out. It was a business transaction.
5 minutes? 10 minutes?
I got lost a little bit along the way, but I tried to get in and out. Got the slice of pizza on the way out again because I had a hockey game, but we didn't stay too long. Anyway, so
you spend more time eating than you did looking at card booths and like going around looking.
Maybe. Let's not talk about it. Let's move into market trends. We have the good thing about us missing our bi-weekly podcast is that the sales kind of pile up, and we got a lot of good ones to talk about. EVs still hot. EVs, as always, still going to the moon. So we have a pair of PSA 9 Play Promo Espeons and Umbreons sold on different marketplaces. The PSA 9 Espeon sold for $23.5K on Rare Candy, and as well as the PSA 9 Play Promo Umbreon sold for $84K on Alt. Just my initial impressions. It makes sense. I think like the last I'm actually the Play Promo Umbreon was a bit higher than I expected as a PSA 9, just because I think the last PSA 10 sold for around 125-ish. So usually the PSA 10 premium is a little bit higher than that over a PSA 9, but this is an extremely rare card, very difficult to get. It was virtually impossible to actually earn the card through the original point system of the play system. Makes me think that probably a lot of the cards, because it was so difficult to actually obtain, almost impossible. I would almost think that like a lot of the actual cards that got graded were probably never actually awarded. So I'm just spitballing in my head as we go here. PSA 9 play promo, huh? Extra copies, extra copies. PK Ono special employees, and then PSA 9 play promo SBN. I think I'm pretty. I think that's a decent price for that card in a PSA 9 sample. What do you think?
I think that Umbreon's really strong. I mean, is there like a cross grade opportunity? The thing with like PSA 9 is a lot of the CGC 10s like aren't that much higher than PSA 9. Like they almost like price at a slight premium to 9s, not really a discount to 10s. And so like I think that's super strong. Like that's a 84K. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that 84K was the PSA 10 price. I mean, it was like, 90, then like it was like 115, 120, 140. So you kind of had a couple bumps there, and they'd all just kept getting a little bit more. And so like 84 for a 9, like I mean that's a sign of strength. So I mean, I'm kind of curious what the raw value of that card would be if it was like a low grade, or I mean, the thing is that you never really would find like a super low grade of this because people that got it would know how valuable it is. It's like no one's going to find an illustrator in their mom's basement. No one's going to like, just find this card and be like, oh, what is this? It's like anyone who had this like knows what they had. Like it's not just a card that appears out of nowhere. So I'd see it being protected. I'd see most of the grades being 9s or 10s. 84K is solid.
That's a
boom.
Good price, man. If you're the seller of that card, you should be ecstatic. If you guys want to learn more about like how difficult the PSA 10 or the play promo Umbreon was to acquire, I know that the Fine card did a really good reel explaining the difficulty of obtaining that card. He does a great job. We actually use a lot of his graphics in the podcast just because he does an exceptional job of just making everything in a timely manner. So if you guys want to learn more about those cards, you can check him out on Instagram. He does a fantastic job. Moving still in the vein of trophy cards, we have 66K PSA 9 trophy Kang, the parent-child trophy card, finishing off at 66K on alt. The reason why I wanted to note this is because mainly because a PSA 8.5, those half grades sold a couple weeks ago for like $30,000, basically $32,000 less. So on PWCC, so when we talk about half grades, at that point, if I was like the owner of that PSA 8.5, I would really be working on grade optimization there, because if getting that extra 0.5 grade nets me another $32,000, definitely well worth the effort to try to get it graded again. But what do you think of those two sales?
Well, so the PSA 9 at 66, that feels like fair to me. I think a lot of people, it's going to feel low. It's going to feel like, oh man, that card's tanking, this and that. Like a lot of people, like it used to be 70, 75K. There were a couple one-off like 90, 100K, I think, range, but I don't know if those were just quotes or sales. And so it's like the 66 to like 70 range for PSA 9 feels like exactly where the card should be at. But I think that the larger market is going to feel that that's a very low price for the card. And I do think the disparity between 9s and 10s Trophy Kang is much greater. Like I could see the PSA 10 Trophy Kang being like that 200K mark, and it kind of does vary. Like you can find that 250 buyer, but it may actually also auction for 175. But I think the real story here is the PSA 8.5. That 38.4 is low, to the point where like I've seen other Trophy Kangs like change hands and become available. Like I think I've seen a 4, a 5, a 6, like all like for sale above 40. And so to see a high grade example like an 8.5 in a PSA case, this isn't CGC 8.5, this isn't BGS 8.5, this is a PSA 8.5, which should be stronger than an 8 and just slightly weaker than a 9. Like below 40 is rough. I think that's an easy 50, 55K card. It might be a quick flip for someone. But that 38, that's someone took a hit there. That PWCC auction, I believe, was probably the worst performed PWCC auction we've seen in a long time. And so I think that auction overall just underperformed quite a bit.
All right, Zach, I'm going to get tinfoil hat with you here for a second with alt, because general trend I've noticed with alt lately is that their auctions do better, especially on the high end. than a lot of the other auction houses. So we talk about that Play Promo Umbreon at 84K. When we had that massive surge of PSA 10 first edition Zards hit the market all at once. Randomly, Alt had like 270K sale when Charizards were sitting at like 170, 200 mark. I'm kind of long term, we're gonna kind of keep a closer eye on Alt and their auctions, and just to kind of see if there's a little bit of some trends that you might want to note as buyers, because it's a fairly new auction house. So I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to keep an eye on that one.
Do you want to go deep here? Do you want to go deep?
Let's go deep. Let's go deep.
Yeah. Do you want to get the viewers what they're watching for? So why did PWCC perform so strongly in 2021, 2022, and like those years before they almost went bankrupt? Do you remember something they maybe offered the market that sort of gave them a competitive advantage? Like Alt, I think a lot of you guys know, acts as a vault. You can send your cards in, you can buy and sell. You can direct list via fixed price on eBay. You can send your cards to auction and all. I think a lot of the PSA cards over $1,000 really perform really well and all. Under $1,000, they got a lot of work to do. But PWCC performed well because they let you take loans on their cards. They let you collateralize your collection, take a loan, and bid on things. Well, PWCC doesn't do that anymore because they did a few things. Yeah, someone was doing some things. They were double dipping a few places. They were, making a few, few things they shouldn't have been. And I don't see any public records saying any of that. But they were doing some things they shouldn't have been. And PWCC no longer has a loan program, but Alt right now has a loan program. They'll give you 40% loan to value. They'll be a very favorable term. So Alt is set up in a way where they have a vault service, they have an auction house, and they also act as a partial sort of like bank in a way, like a fiduciary and this and that. So you can literally send them your collection, take a loan, bid on the auctions, and use them as like sort of a financing, funding, all this and that. They're a lot more strict than PWCC. I think PWCC could have been a great business model that eventually that could have sold for $1 billion if they just would have make a little bit less, do things right, be more
chilled out a bit.
Yeah, just make a little bit less, do things the right way, don't rush things, you can crush it. Alt's got some very level-headed, very bright people who've had exits before, who know what they're doing, and they're basically doing what PWCC should have done, but doing it like with a lot more restrictions and requirements. So when you see these big sales by Alt, my first thought is the big brain thing is they're acting as a bank and they're letting people sort of leverage and they're creating all this extra liquidity. And like the thing is, I may go to an auction and I may only buy $10,000 worth of cards in an auction, but I may be worth $100,000 worth of bids in that auction. So I may go bid, I'll get outbid on this Snap Bulbasaur, I'll go get outbid here, this or that. And it's like I may have given that auction house even $500,000 worth of bids, and I may not have bought a single card. But the only reason I can do this is because I have that liquidity. And so it's less about like me spending the money. It's more about giving access to everyone else to spend the money. Because you see that favorite card you have 10 copies of, like you don't want that card to go low, so you're going to bid at 75% or whatever. But if you don't have the money, then you're not. I don't know. It's just I think Alt's big brain here, and they're doing it right.
Do they accept crypto?
I don't know. I've tried to. I feel like a lot of people made a lot of money in crypto. I've never, for some reason, I just am not good at it, so I just avoid it.
I'm just wondering if they accept crypto, then maybe that's another reason why they're kind of crushing it in terms of the higher end auction sales. But yeah, something to keep an eye out on. So let's move on to No Rarity. No Rarity. So we had a PSA 10 Blastoise, No Rarity, finish off at 114K recently on PWCC. We talked about No Rarity. It was either last podcast or the 2 podcasts ago. And I told you that when I was in the hobby and No Rarity was kind of starting to become a thing, I kind of like scoffed at it. But then I also admitted that more recently my opinions of No Rarity have changed just because the introduction of Chinese buyers now, just because Chinese buyers were not able to participate in the market when I was really deep into it. So I think that there's a really big ceiling on No Rarity as of right now, because Chinese people just love Japanese cards, not so much English. They're not huge fans of English cards, which is probably why we've seen a little bit of a dip as well in just like English vintage cards. So that was the recent PSA 10 sale of the Blastoise. These next two sales happened a while ago, but just like I'm just kind of noting them just to kind of give you a scope of what the starters are for no rarity are. So we're talking Venusaur at 55k. So I think the English equivalent of first ed Venusaur is usually around 10 to 12,000. And then we have a Charizard selling at 300k. And obviously we know Charizard more recently sits pretty much at 170, 175 in first edition English. anytime we just talk about no rare Charizard, I just get like PTSD of like the drama that card costs. Oh no, it's not the what if. It's more like the drama that card caused when I was like really into the hobby with like very dedicated, like really old members of the community, kind of just having arguments about it. Who's that other one that was really into no rarity? What was his name?
Pokemon Syndicate.
Pokemon Syndicate, and his long rants about no rarity, and just there's PTSD about that one.
Man, I've got some stories. He got fleeced for his zard, and that was a rough thing. He's going through some really unstable like mental stuff, and he basically had the trio and all tens, and then basically it kind of got pried out of his fingers when he was going through like a middle episode, and it's just rough altogether. He's someone that like, if you did a deal with, like, it just, I don't know, you can't do it dirty. You got to like, do it over like years and make sure it's something he wants to do. And I think he just kind of got taken advantage of. But, coming back, the no rarity Blastoise sale, what an incredible sale. Like 114K is nuts. Like that is nuts. Pretty sure that card sold privately for like a fourth of that price, that same copy. I think, I got to double check the certs. And so that was a massive, massive win for the seller there. That's huge. Big tax bill coming. So I think no rarity's got a lot of room. I think you're right on with the Chinese buyers. I think they push a lot of the market forward. It's one of those things where no one really knows if no rarity was like first. I think it was like highly speculated. And there's all these like things that point to it, like, oh yeah, this poster doesn't have the no rarity thing on there. Oh, all these art pieces media don't have the symbol on there. But like, I don't think Ishihara or Akabane or Sugimori's ever come out and said, "Oh yeah, we forgot to add it. We added it." I mean, like I don't know if you can rule out that, hey, they made all the booster boxes and they put the no rarity symbol, then they made another print run, they forgot it with the short crimp. Like I think no rarity is probably 99% the first like set when it comes to like the actual trading card game that's playable, this and that. But for the large part, I think. I don't know if it's like 100% certain. I don't know if it's been like proven or whatever. I think it's just a high probability.
If you were to put like a date or a guesstimate on when the first complete for PSA 10 16 card set of no rarity is gonna surface and someone actually completes it, I think we all pretty much have a good idea who's gonna do it. But you like, if you take a guess of when it's gonna happen, timeline wise, what do you think it's gonna be?
I think in the next 3 years. I think grading companies value the media attention they receive from certain grades. So I may have saw like a 2023 Pikachu #1 world champion get a BGS 10, which used to be an impossible grade. I've never actually graded a BGS 10 myself. Not a black label, just a pristine 10. And I have never seen a world championship first place, second place, third place Pikachu trophy that deserved a gem mint grade. Like I've never seen one that's beautiful. I think the extra copies are super clean. I've seen held extra copies of these trophies before. They're for whatever reason they just feel pretty clean. But like the ones awarded that are handed out, they always have a rough cut. The edges are always rough. And like when I saw that card get a pristine, I'm like, there's no way. It's like telling me that a Prelude Fable got a 10. Like a card with the worst cut corners ever that even every 9 I've seen, the 9s that I've had that I've graded, like I think should have been 8s. You know what I mean? I've never seen a card that deserved a mint grade. So, like to circle back, I had like 3 stories there. I think the media attention has value, and when you can produce that value for free yourself, I think there's some lines there.
That's why I'm here, Zach. I'm here because I don't work in the hobby. I don't have to maintain these relationships. I can say whatever I want with my ADHD brain and not have to deal with any repercussions. And it is absolutely fantastic. So you think within the next 3 years?
I think within the next 3 years. Now, I think we know which collection that'll be. which collection that complete set will be a part of. So I don't really
Mhm.
see anyone else building that from scratch. I think it'll be someone who's already like 80% of the way there. And
Mhm.
you're talking about pop one cards becoming pop two. I don't know if there's any pop zero cards still. Maybe Chansey. I'd have to double check. But I mean, there were cards I was chasing that were pop one and two for the longest time, and I never ever saw the other copy. Like even to this day, like I've never seen the other copy of the pop two. And so, like some cards I know were lost in floods and fires, and it's sad to hear the collection stuff. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes people graded a card in 2008, and they got a 10 Slow King, and they never showed it after that. They probably
Yeah.
forgot about it.
I think like I said earlier, I think the no rater market's very highly sustained by obviously the people trying to complete the first set, as well as the Chinese buyers. But I also think like the black label market is also very much sustained by the Chinese marketplace as well. It just seems like if you take a look at like the premium prices of the black label cards that have sold recently, all Japanese cards, all cards that are already selling pretty decently around that $5,000 mark. Your Pancho Picas, your Battle Festas, stuff like that. So the introductions of the Chinese buyers, I think like it was just like a milestone event in this hobby that I think at this time we still haven't really like basically appreciated or kind of look back on how important that was to the hobby. And like time will tell just like how much more influence that will have. But I think we should all just take like a mental note at this moment of just like how big of a deal that was. But moving on, we have some more sales. So BGS 7.5 SSB number one Mewtwo sold for 72K on PWCC. Obviously not the best grade ever, but I think this is a really good example of selling at the right time, because this card has not shown up on the market for a very long time, for several months now, at least half a year now. And even though I think the final price of this card, the person probably should be extremely happy with a 7.5 grade. I think 72 is a really solid price for it. And I just think, like anything, the timing was right, and they just sold at a good time and maximized that card's value.
Yeah, the BGS 7.5. Anytime I see BGS below like a 9, like my first thought is like, like they tend to skew in the higher side of things. So like the 7.5 is probably a lower grade. Like PSA, I mean CDC, I mean maybe it's similar, but like when I see the BGS 7.5, it's like I'm not thinking this copy is a super strong copy like overall. It is kind of sad it's number one, so to me it feels like a bottom dollar sort of piece for this. If it was like a number three, I feel a little bit better about it. I don't ever see a number one like SSB ever get down like 50 or 60 or so. Like so 72 is like, it's like someone saying, "Oh, it is number one, but it is a 7.5." Like I would almost crack it, put an authentic case.
It's like there's like it's number one has not showed up in a while. I don't know when another number one's going to show up. Like I said, I think the person who sold this card, 72K it's a really solid price for that card. Moving on, the opposite direction of solid, we have the continual downfall of the first edition Neo Genesis Lugia, finishing off at 28.2K. The more and more I think about this, the more and more I'm just like, I'm very skeptical, and not skeptical because it did sell, but I'm more aware, or just like, how do I say this nicely?
Do you want me to interpret it for you? I can do your work.
Actually, you go with it. You phrase, since I helped you with the last one. Let me in regards to the first sale, the big sale. Let me, since I did help you the last one, you can help me with this one.
Set cards are down. Set cards. The ceiling on set cards is just tough. I think the Zard even being down like 170 is tough. But it's one of those things where it's like, yes, Lugia had 129K sale a couple years ago. Like, yes, it did have a couple sales in between. It did have that 22K sale that was actually regraded at PSA 8, and PSA paid out the difference. That was confirmed. And so it kind of sucks that 22K sale probably brought down the price of this. But like the Typhlosion, 40, 50, 60K, those are some of the private numbers on that T17 card. Ampharos, another big card. But it's one of those things where like the set cards that had these huge premiums due to low pop or popularity. I mean, Lugia is the Gen 2 Charizard. And that card getting back to 50, 60, 80, 100K is like, it's just going to be tough. There's so many other options, so many trophy cards and snap cards. Like, I think the market's just saying, like we like modern and also set cards for these big ones. Just it's hard to break through. They've just been stagnant for a while.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Why
sir.
is Lugia the Gen 2 Charizard when the direct comparable is a Ho-Oh, which is also a fire flying type? Why is it Ho-Oh the Gen 2 Charizard? Why?
One was like a turkey bird, and the other one's like the star of a movie. Like,
But that turkey bird was in the very first episode of the animation.
It just flew over, and you're like, "What is that?" I don't know. It's like a shadow. Like Lugia is like literally in the cover. It's like when you went to the movies as a kid. If Ho-Oh was the main character in that movie, the Pokemon. Oh man, was it? It's not the first movie.
Pokemon 2000.
Yeah, Pokemon 2000. Then we would all love Ho-Oh. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I always find it weird when people say that like the direct comparable is right there. Yeah, yet we decide to go with Lugia as the example. But also Ho-Oh has a much cooler story and a much cooler lore background than Lugia does. Like you said, maybe it just needed its own dedicated movie to actually kind of bump it up. But the Lugia card I found like the Lugia card's weird looking with its hands out there. It's a strange looking card. The Aquapolis Lugia artwork is by far way better than the Neo Genesis one, in my personal opinion. But anyways,
yeah. I got a video I need to send you. There's this one guy that did a really cool video on like Pokemon history and lore and like where it all comes from, like the unknowns, like what does Ho-Oh mean, Lugia, like all that. I need to find that, send it to you if you got time. It's like a 30-minute video, but I watched it. I was like, no way, this blew my mind. It's like Japanese like culture and all this stuff, like how it integrates with Pokemon. I was like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense now.
All right, we'll stick in the vein. Since we just talked about Ho-Oh, we'll talk about other fire chickens. We have a sale of a PSA 10 Gold Star Torchic. I feel like I don't know why I have to do this now, because I feel like I have to like preface this with the cert numbers now, especially with these low population cards that are sell for extremely high premium. I feel like I have to add like a little bit of a qualifier now with them. But we have a 2/8 cert PSA 10 Gold Star Torchic finishing off at 38.5K via PWCC. I haven't honestly have not kept up with the market on Gold Stars. It seems like I feel like that card probably at some point was sitting at like 50,000 for that card. But so I'll let you kind of take the reins on this one with the Gold Star market.
40.
Yeah,
there was
40?
a sale that was higher. There was a sale that was higher than 40. I think it was like 45K private sale, but 40 has kind of been the mark for a while. I don't know if there's ever a 50K sale, but 40 has been the consistent. If you want it, pay 40, you'll probably get one. Yeah, same with Gold Star Rayquaza. 40 has kind of been the number for a while. Haven't seen a public Gold Star Rayquaza sale in a minute. I think if one were to auction, it could break 40, but I think even offering 40, you may not pull one out because, it's like let the market cool off. I always get frustrated with people that like list cards like Gold Star Ray at 50K buy now or 6K buy now. It never lets it grow past that. It's like you kind of like cut the growth. I think Lugia, when it hit that 130K sale, it's because there were none available between there and 130K. So it wasn't saying, oh, this should be less than 60 or less than 50. I don't know. I think of the economics of it.
I remember when because I was on the E4 Discord going back to Lugia for some reason. I don't know why. When that 125K sale happened, and immediately I remember like everyone, once that sale finalized, everyone and their mothers jumped on eBay and like bought up all the PSA 9s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the PSA 9 was sitting at like 5K each. So literally everyone just like bought up the supply of PSA 9s, thinking that there was more ceiling, just because now the PSA 10 is unattainable. People can't get PSA 10 now. So next step is to get PSA 9. So therefore, we kind of like hold the market by the balls. But long term, I think the collectors won out there. I'm not sure if anyone lost their shirts with those PSA 9 Lugias. But yeah, just where we are. Finishing off, bread and butter card, PSA 10 Zard. 14XX cert, so OG certification, in a new lighthouse case. So it has been reslabbed, finishing off at golden at 171K. it's where Zard's at right now. 170 it seems to be the price where the market is holding firm at. I think what people are holding line, probably investors, stores holding the line at 170K for that card, maintaining that price. And I'm not sure when the next bump is going to be created by, but I'm pretty confident that we're looking pretty much at the floor right now permanently for Zards at 170, just because we've had so many sell at 170. So there's obviously some people just keeping that and buying them all up. And I think long term wise, that's a good price, because I think you've said it multiple times, you expect that card eventually at some point to be $1 million card. So what do you think?
I think it's holding the floor. Like first hit base boxes at 200. Like I think someone's literally holding it. It could be sports card collectors. They're much more liquid, have much more cash than other Pokemon card guys. And I just think they're saying like, hey, it's a staple. There's 124 copies that's out there. Like a lot of them have changed hands. I think a lot of the same copies change hands. But if we see a Zard at 150, and it's not a weak copy, then I would I'd be sweating a little bit. But you're seeing thick and thin stamp copies like be priced in that same 170 range. So I don't know. It still baffles me that it all got the 290 sale. I'm like, what? It just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So
I'm not gonna talk more about that as much as I want to, just for I don't want to say something I don't want to say. Anyways, that is market trends. A lot of good stuff. a lot of good stuff coming up in the last couple of weeks. So moving on to our main topics, I'm going to start this one because I know that you have lots of opinions on this first one. So PSA now offers greater notes available for premium price. So competition always drives the market. And so what company recently has been very transparent with their grades? It's a 3-letter company, begins with the T and ends with the G. Focused AI grading. Obviously, we're talking about tag. If you get a card graded by tag, you get literally a whole forensic breakdown of the cards. And everything about the card, all the nicks, the scratches, everything is broken down. So obviously PSA is still a human-based, eye-based company with grades. I want to touch on that a little bit later, but I'm gonna let you take the floor with this, because I know, like I said, you have a lot of opinions of this. So the floor is yours.
I mean, like I said, in previous podcasts, there's probably 10 to 20 grading companies you've never heard of. Rare Edition is another one that does greater notes. BGS will sometimes give you a piece of paper showing you why something didn't get upgraded, which is kind of cool. It's really quick hand, this and that. But I think the one thing that I've sort of taken away from the PSA notes is that they look very standardized. They look like there's probably a list of 20 options they can pick. They pick the option. They pick what it is. It doesn't feel like any of this is freehand. And so what does PSA want to do? They've got all these graders in Japan and, I always forget the city, but it's in Southern California. I always forget the location. And then they got graders in New Jersey. The last thing they want people do is start typing up novels and writing all these details like, oh, it's a scratch right above the head of the Charizard. You'll never see that. You'll see scratch top right. It's standardized in a way to reduce the risk of PSA. They don't want to open themselves up to all this stuff. But really what they're saying is, if you want to give us $125 a card minimum, we'll tell you a couple notes. We may not tell you everything. They probably got a lot of risk clauses and stuff in there. But it is pretty cool that they're doing it. It does feel a little bit like an Apple user getting an Android feature years and years later and then being like, yay, we got it. And it's like, dude, Android had that like in 2000. Like, so are you an Android or Apple user, man?
Hardcore Apple user for the last decade.
Doesn't that feel like a PSA user?
I like my standardized experience with Apple. Like, nothing gets too complicated. It's very intuitive. It's obviously not the most robust feature wise, but when it works, and it works well. So that's why I am an Apple user.
PSA, most of the users are boomers. I mean, I guess you could say a lot of the sports card guys. I mean, what is it? Apple's kind of for the boomers now, and then I don't know. Got to have your big reading glasses on. Just the
All right.
text, pull up your text messages, jump both
I
sides.
don't want to. If this is a Pokemon podcast, I don't want to get to Apple versus Android versus Samsung debate. Yeah, I'm gonna get us back on the rails with just this topic. Quick question. So
Okay.
PSA up and down in terms of a company within the last 10 years. They obviously have expanded past
Mhm.
California into other countries as well. The Japanese market is a huge one. They opened acceptance place in Canada, or are opening one. Not no grading is happening in Canada, but which is stupid. But that is another topic in general. But I think we both can agree overhead of a company is usually caused by the employees. Like that's the biggest cost of a company is paying the employees, paying graders, paying people to slab the cards. Obviously, you can't when you're talking about slapping a six-figure card. You probably don't want that done by AI at this point or a computer at this point. Do you ever think that eventually PSA will just to save money? Once it becomes highly optimized, everything's just cheaper to run. Do you think they'll ever transfer over to an AI based model?
Yeah, it's probably in their product plan. They probably have it lined out. Nat's a tech guy. Nat Turner, the CEO of Collectors, the company that owns PSA. And so it absolutely has been the product plan. I mean, they've had, was it Gemini for a while? They never really talked about when it was integrated or when they're using it. They just kind of one day they're like, oh, yeah, we bought this company and we've started using them. To the extent that the public knows, like, different things they're doing, I think they're probably doing a lot more than like we know. Whenever we become fully automated, I think they're firm believers that you have to have a human touch to it, look, feel, this and that. I think there's a lot of things to do with AI and computers that, like centering, easy. You know what I mean? It may be harder with some of the tag team, alt arts, where the borders kind of blur, this and that. Like you really need a baseline, you need 100 copies of a card, get a good sample size, this and that. And sometimes, like, you can have a card that's so just perfectly fake that the human and the computer can't tell it's fake. And at that point, is it a fake card or is it real? You know what I mean? And all kinds of testing and stuff. Every type of testing has some sort of flaws. So it's really a topic. Like, is it a real card or is it fake? If you can't tell them apart, I throw them in a pile, mix it all up. Hey, pull out the fake. No one knows.
It's I'm smiling because it kind of reminds me of like a saying that I heard once when we were talking about like forged artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it kind of reminds me of like who is the more talented artist, the worst person who actually came up with the artwork, or the person who replicated it absolutely perfectly? Who is actually the more talented between the two? It's it's kind of it's a thing that you have to think about a little bit.
Well, one isn't the creative, and the other is the imposter. So I
Yeah,
think the
I'm
creative
talking
is
about like raw
always.
skill wise.
I think the person who creates it, who designs it's probably the more skillful. The person who
Yeah.
replicates it, yeah, it's cool. I think I don't know, just the reverse engineering part of it. I mean, like I can't paint, but like painting like a Da Vinci or something, probably hard. How many
Mhm.
like Da Vinci replicas have you seen that are like, man, that looks pretty freaking close?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
But Da
know.
Vinci's still like the iconic.
Mhm.
I
Just to
mean,
go back on your idea of just like there still has to be like some element, even if you're like reducing like human element to the grading. Like if you're like, I think like the high end cards, you have like three sets of eyes goes through a card.
mhm,
You have two people, and then kind of like a third person final say. Let's just say you eliminate two of those
mhm,
people. Like that's a lot of savings. Like you're talking about like a lot of savings in terms of like paying people. Like if you finish off with just having, opposed to paying three people, you're just paying one person. And
yeah,
that ideally that one person is probably one of the more experienced graders that you have on hand. That's money. It's a financial financial
yeah,
financial savings in the long run. So I was just kind of putting that out there.
yeah. I think you automate what you can. You try to pare things down. PSA has a lot of like non-rev or non like core like business parts that add a lot of value. So like SMR magazine, which is now the PSA magazine, it doesn't really like make them any money, but it adds a lot of value to the collector. Set registry, probably one of the main reasons I graded with PSA and love PSA, completing sets, tracking all that on their website. It's easy, it's one-to-one, like huge value add. Costs a lot of time. It's a team of people that does it. It's not just like one person, this or that. And so there's a lot of things PSA does that like adds value to the collector, the brand, that really doesn't go back to the actual grading of the card or the case or the authentication or the history or all that stuff. It's there's a lot of layers there, and I think other grading companies, they start adding more of that value. Maybe it'll pull in more collectors and less of the business sort of piece. Um, but no, I think there's a lot more to it. And the thing is, you can have Walmart everywhere in America. But some people still like going to the mom and pop shop. Some people still like that personal feel, that the interpersonal relationship. And so I think if you over automate everything, you take out some of the reasons people collect. Like there's some things that companies like I know Wizards and Hasbro are kind of skipping a lot of card shops, and they're doing some direct to consumer and stuff and just cutting them out. It's like you lose some of that vibe, some of that feel, some of that reason you collect. It's like yes, it's all cardboard. Yes, it's shiny. Yes, we love this hobby. But at the end of the day, like why? Is it because of the memories, the nostalgia, the friends, the game, the getting the 10, the goal, the completion, or like I don't know. It's just I think there's a lot of layers to it, and you get to the point where it's just like a computer just telling you. It's like I don't know. It's maybe it's just an old school way of thinking. But
Well said, well said. And that is actually a very perfect segue into the next topic when you just brought up Walmart, because I think 2 days ago, breaking news, Walmart announced that they are actually jumping into the collecting marketplace. Man, Walmart has a lot of money. Walmart has so much money. So that's a huge deal. So they have basically Amazon money, basically, to do whatever the hell they want. And I'm gonna let you take the floor with this because you're the one who wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, well, I think it's huge because it's a non like the core business is not trading card game or like selling trading card products, this or that. I think they put it on shelves because it probably sells a little better than candy. You know what I mean? And the margins are decent. So if you ever try to sell in any sort of retail space, like the margins they want are like obscene. Like think about how much money you think Walmart makes on these things, and then just like double it. That's probably closer to what they're actually making on this stuff. And so Walmart offering some sort of e-commerce, piece, and you got to remember they were behind Amazon. They were behind a lot of these other companies that were coming to light. They were behind on the grocery delivery stuff. They're a slow mover. They do not get ahead of things, and they're vicious with their negotiations. They're vicious with their sellers. They force every one of their big suppliers to live in Arkansas and literally just kind of come to them, and they put the pressure on a lot of people. And a lot of times there's a lot of things they just don't necessarily care as much about. Like you're not going to get that customer service experience you would with a local card shop. Now, yes, Walmart's a behemoth. If I had a product to put on the shelf of Walmart, like MJ Holdings and some of these other people do, they're probably making a ton of money on that stuff. But I bet you Walmart's making 10 times as much as MJ Holdings is on some of the products. And so I think it's awesome for the hobby that you're going to add more visibility, liquidity, more ways to buy and sell. I think it's awesome. I think a lot of people are going to get screwed by Walmart. I think, just reading some of the comments and some of the thoughts other people have, it's like, yeah, I did a deal with Walmart one time and they just refund people like no other. Like imagine I'm just a small shop and I just sell I got 100, 151 boxes and I just try to sell it through Walmart. And all of a sudden I have like 10% of returns. And it's like, I don't know if they wrapped it, maybe they open all the cards, return it. Like, the people that work at Walmart, they're not going to be card experts. I'm not dodging the people. I'm just saying they don't know the hobby like we know the hobby. And so I'm going to be beholden to Walmart issuing that refund. They're just going to take it out of my seller account. That. There's probably not be nearly as many protections. Remember eBay 5-10 years ago, like when someone did a return or anything like that, you get screwed. And now eBay's wised up. And a lot of that wising up by eBay was because of PWCC putting pressure on eBay to change the way they look at trading cards, to change the way they do returns, to shorten you got 3 days to open this package and do a return, but I'm not going to give you 90 days to decide if a player is going to have a good season or not and figure out if they get hurt or whatever. And you're going to go through all those painful things we went through with eBay the last 15 years with Walmart over these next 6 months to a year, because I doubt they hired someone from PSA. I doubt they've hired people who've been through this. And I bet you they're going to favor the customer at the end of the day. So they want that customer coming back to Walmart and not Publix or Target or this or that, or maybe it puts pressure on Target to do something. But I think Target's I got a lot of people I used to go to college with went and worked at Target headquarters. I feel like they'd have a more careful approach, but that's a rant. But it's really cool, but be very, very cautious if you decide to do any business with Walmart.
Can you give it like a quick summary of what Walmart's business model is going to be in terms of like the collecting sphere? Like what are they going to be doing?
When you read the headline, it really is like open to interpretation. Like we need someone from Walmart just to give a deep dive. It's like you'll have the ability to sell new and used cards, including pre-orders, as a seller on a platform. So it seems like they're going to create some sort of platform, and hopefully more news comes out about this by the time we share the podcast. But it seems like I could sell pre-orders, which why wouldn't you do that through Walmart itself, since they probably have more leverage with distributors and stuff already. So like, I don't know, to me it's more like I would rather buy and sell graded cards or raw cards. Like if you're doing sealed, like why doesn't Walmart just do it themselves? Like I know it's a lot of third-party vendors that come and stock Walmart shelves. So a lot of times they're like, I don't really care. Like I'll just stock, and maybe, this is, just speculation, big brain play, tinfoil hat play right here. Maybe they got pissed at the people who were coming in, stocking the shelves and telling everybody, hey, I'm stocking Tuesday at 2, be there. And that buddy comes and just buys everything. Like, remember that stuff that happened in pandemic?
Yeah.
Like
no Pokemon cards. There were no Pokemon cards.
So Walmart's saying, hey, let's make a marketplace. We don't have to worry about this third-party stocking the shelves and Texas buddy. And people get mad at them, but people get mad at us, but really they're mad at them. Now they're saying, hey, let's just open the floodgates, make it easy. But it's not that easy. It's our hobby's got a lot of expert people, and I want Walmart to succeed. I'm just very skeptical.
The ultimate degen thing I think I saw was like in a Walmart. I saw like it was like on Instagram, like a woman literally weighing packs at Walmart. Just sitting in the aisle, opening, like weighing packs. I'm just like, man.
Like Walmart's not like a card shop. Like that pack, you're taking it away from a 5-year-old. You're taking it away from a 7-year-old. Like it's not like you're taking it away from, like, I don't know. It just it feels so anti, like, just happiness. Like to do that.
Yeah, makes me very sad as well. Also, card scandals make me sad. So we had a $2 million card scandal. This wasn't just Pokemon. This spanned outside into sports as well. Your Jordans, your Brady's, your starters, your OG starters as well. Basically, a couple of guys were selling fake. They were taking fake lower grade cards and putting them into higher grade cases, and basically selling them at premium prices, mostly through card shows. Probably because there's less. It's less chance that you're going to get reverse charged based on like eBay's solid policies of return policies of making sure things are legit and everything. It's also less public as well because there are a lot of sleuths in the hobby, so you can see like a lot of people like, oh, I've seen this shit before, but that wasn't that card in that case before. That's a different card. So it's definitely probably a better idea to do it like in person at like a card show. But I'll let you lead on how this exactly happens and what exactly they did to scam $2 million worth of product to people.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things that have come out. I mean, there's a guy in China that was doing another fake PSA case thing. And, I've had probably 10 plus people from China reach out to me who could create fake cases or offered me my own case if I wanted to sleeve slab cards. To get the little press machine doesn't cost that much. If you look at all the cases, PSA doesn't necessarily have the most expensive case. It's something that can be replicated fairly easily. There are security features and stuff. I don't really want to go into all those right here, but like someone with enough knowledge could fake a case enough to where the point of a non-PSA person could probably it would pass the eye test. But PSA's added a couple different things here and there to make it more difficult, and over time the PSA cases did change. So it's like this cert number is tied to this PSA case, and so there are other ways to kind of identify when something's wrong. But really, I think these guys, I don't necessarily think they were faking their labels. I think they were probably using real labels. Like if I went on eBay and I bought a first set PSA 10 Zard, theoretically that card should regrade a 10 with PSA. I mean, I think it's, kind of tough. But let's say I cracked that 10 Zard. I've got a clean label. I've also got a clean Zard. Send that card back in to get regraded. I put that label in a fake case or something, and seal it the whatever way. Like, I mean, I think that's one way to do it. But the thing is, eventually it's going to catch up to you because, hollow patterns, tend to not lie. Especially with Cosmos hollow patterns, like it's pretty obvious that, oh, these little circles change here and there. And so you always want to just pull up the card on PSA, and it's not just, hey, does this cert number match this card? Like, oh, hey, is this card off center? Why isn't this card off center? Ask the right questions, because getting the case isn't that hard, but like going through all the checks you normally make, is there frosting on the outside of the case, a good telltale sign? Sometimes there are PSA cards that have had water damage and stuff. There's all kinds of ways to check. But I think these guys were more sophisticated, but obviously got by a lot of people. A lot of people who want to avoid public attention and scrutiny use auction houses or do private deals in cash. So you got people like, oh, I only want to do cash, cash. It's like, okay, like I would scrutinize that deal way more. I get some people want to like do whatever they want to do with taxes, like whatever. Like if you deal with me, you're going to get everything's reported. And so like you just want to scrutinize things more if things feel off. Most of the cards that are stolen at shows, it comes back around, they're resold with cash somewhere else. And so just use your brain, be safe. But these guys were doing it at a higher level. Two guys, $2 million in fraud. They need to go to jail for a period of time. I mean, they probably cost a lot of people, good money or investments that they had.
Oh, for sure. The FBI got involved. Once the FBI gets involved, things have just gotten way too real for these guys. So they've been.
Yeah, I mean, not to go on a tangent real fast, but I bought a sports card one time that it was just a white back, and then I bought it online. I had a really cool like patch, all this cool stuff, and time went on. I went to get graded and got pushed back. It's been manipulated, this and that. Turns out the card had been graded before. It just had a white patch on it. And so the card had been changed, where the guy had altered the card. And then I got my money back through Amex. And the guy was like, oh, hey, can you see the card back? And I was like, no, I'm actually going to send this to the FBI. Because, like, and the guy was like, oh, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. And I was like, no. It's like, this is fraud. Like, whoever did this shouldn't be in the hobby. Anyone that commits fraud in this hobby should never be in this hobby whatsoever. I'm a big believer in keep the hobby as clean, ethical, as moral as it should be. And so I didn't send the card back to him. I literally just sent it off, let the FBI take care of it. And the good news is there's a lot of cops in this hobby. There's a lot of people that work in law enforcement. And the thing is, they hate these guys way more than you do. And the thing is, they know how to handle this stuff. So I think keep the hobby clean and nice, and that's the best way to go about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. So we have some just continue. This could have been a market trend thing, but also I think you brought this up, but you really want to talk. We talked about kind of just like the EV boom that we saw. We talked about in the last episode, but just like modern alt arts. Predicated leading with EVs just because there's so many EVs, there's so many EV alt arts available, but just like we're kind of like I feel like that's the hot thing right now is alt arts in the hobby. That is the hot thing right now for 2024. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, you're talking about the best Pokemon ever made, Jolteon, right? I mean, isn't that an evolution? Isn't that like just S tier? Like we made Jolteon, we could just stop. Like it's just feels so good.
I'm still waiting for another Eevee. It's been a minute since we had a new evolution.
Do you remember when there were like 6 sets in a row that all had Zards? And you're like, dude, Zard fatigue, Zard fatigue, Zard fatigue. You're going to say I want another Eevee, and then you're going to be like, dude, Eevee fatigue, Eevee fatigue. It's just never going to stop. They're going to open the floodgates.
Yeah. We need a Dragon Eevee and a Steel Eevee. That's what we need.
Okay, to get into the alt art piece, the alt arts I think are just beautiful cards. I think Black and White wasn't my favorite era. Then you had X and Y, and then you had Sun and Moon, and like you had the full arts. Then you had sort of the development of things, and you get to the point where you have you have the character rares, ARs, and you have these alt arts that are just some of the most beautiful cards ever made. And I think Pokemon has really taken this 2020 rise in COVID and this artwork, and they've just far gone beyond everything. I think above all else, the card art and quality is just insane. I think it can carry itself from players to collectors, investors, this and that. And so it's gone to the point where not only are the PSA 10 prices on like a Moonbreon at like $11.50, $11.75 right now, the raw price in this card are like $7.75. It's absolutely insane. And most of the modern cards with English, the quality's getting better. Pokemon did buy, the print place. I'm thinking of the wrong name right now. But the main prep place that's all made here in the U.S. after years and years, those people are like made a ton of money before Pokemon bought them. I mean, their lives changed because Pokemon ever bought the printing place. And it's one of those things where the raw price of the Umbreon is so high and the PSA 10 is so close, it makes no sense for that gap to be that tight. And I don't think the Moonbreon raw is going to come down to 400 or 500. I don't think that the Moonbreon 1150 price, I think it's probably going to explode, but there's so much tension right there. And I don't want to get into the stocks too much, but like when you see a graph that kind of comes closer and closer together, and all of a sudden you kind of see the daily just kind of get this, something's going to happen. So we're at that point with a lot of alt arts that the raw and the PSA 10, like there's no reason they should be as close as they are across the board. So I don't want to make a key prediction here, but I just want to say something will happen in one direction or the other. They will not be that close forever. So make your move accordingly. That's not advice, but that is like a
Is
suggestion.
it sage advice? No.
I don't know how to say it. Like, I don't want to get in trouble with financial advice. But I'm like,
I invested with Jetmint and he was wrong. We are not financial advisors. This is not a financial financial podcast to tell you how to spend your money. We are collectors here. We are just we are noting trends that we are seeing, and that is one trend that Zach has noticed. So plan accordingly.
Yeah, I feel like you're putting one more rubber band on the watermelon, and it's like something's gonna happen, dude. Like I don't know what's gonna happen, but like this watermelon can't take it.
But you know what's going to happen. There's going to be a reprint. That's what's going to happen.
Something you're not thinking of. Boom.
Right. There will be a reprint. If it gets too hot and the market can't keep up, like Pokemon will reprint that set to absolute oblivion. So
I heard a reprint of an EV Heroes. I heard a rumor of a EV Heroes reprint. I've only heard it from one person, and so it's like that's not enough to like be like, oh yeah, that's going to happen. But when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. Like what? They did 151 reprint, EV Heroes reprint. I mean, it's a 350 box. Like, I mean, I would just tank it down like 100.
And if you have some extra time to between Netflix and chilling, season 2 of the Golden documentary is now available on Netflix. Full transparency, I could not get past the first episode of season 1, mainly because it was focused on sports. I'm not a huge person into sports. Also, it was very edited in a very cheesy way, so I couldn't get past the first episode. But apparently, season 2, Zach informed me that it is dedicated to non-sports. So I might take a dip into that next time I have a little bit free time. Have you? I'm assuming it's available now. Have you watched the first episode?
It's on Netflix. I've not watched the first episode. Peter is one of the TCG guys over at Golden. And I hit him up. It's like, hey, man, how you doing? He's like, my phone has been ringing nonstop since this came out. And so not only is that good for Golden because of Netflix and this and that, but it's good for everyone who watches this show anywhere in the country, around the world. It's like, oh, my gosh, like it's Pokemon? Like I collect sports because I'm an older guy, but, I had Pokemon back when I was a kid. Like, let me go look at it, find it. And so it's like anyone who's not aware of Pokemon exploding from like Logan Paul and all this other stuff, Netflix is going to reinvigorate that. I think it's going to make this show summer for July and August even better. People coming out to shows, looking at things, maybe even getting into it being new buyers. Maybe people who don't own collections want to start collecting now. So don't think of it as much as like, oh, it's a show and oh, it's Golden. Think of it as like, it's good for the hobby. It's good to get this out there. It's good to make content. It's good for Netflix to say trading cards are important. Let's share this with the world. It's such a good step. And so I want people to kind of see the overall big picture. Most of the money in this hobby isn't made with me and you buying and selling cards. The money's made when the pizza gets bigger. It's made when things get bigger. And so the more people you bring in the hobby and the more people that can love and enjoy it, appreciate it, that's sort of how you kind of keep the cycle of people. Eventually I'll get old and die, and hopefully my kids will be Pokemon collectors someday and they'll love it. But if they don't want to, that's okay. But it's,
More eyes and more information is like it's the old saying. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as bad publicity. I think like we talked about this before, just like what we think the next inflection point or the next major event, like the Logan Paul, the pandemic, is what's that next thing that's gonna push the hobby into another level. Although it's already somewhat started to happen, but I think we really need more sports people involved in the hobby, more than we actually already have at this moment. I know there's like there are a bunch of sports guys who are slowly getting into hobby, but if we can just get like a large chunk or a bigger chunk of that sports market involved in Pokemon, I think that the hobby will go to that next level.
Yeah. So last quick shout out. I was at Card Party, and Chris, the CEO of Rare Candy, came up to me and he's like, dude, you gotta check out this new app. We got a beta thing. And like, I don't ever want us to like push things or whatever that are, I want everything to be organic, this, that. If we're paid for something, we'll tell you. But like, I think this is like the coolest thing I've seen in a while. He literally pulled up this beta of a Rare Candy scanning app. And he's like, yo, to scan a card, I'll tell you a price. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like other people have it. Like, it's not like the first one to do it. It's just OCR, which I think is awesome. And then he's like, no, but watch this. And he lays out like 9 cards on the table, pulls up the app, scans it, and then it tells me the price of all 9 raw cards on the table in the screen at the same time. And I'm like, whoa. That I have not seen that happen. That is sick. Imagine you put that in like Google Glass or something. I go to sports card show, I look at a showcase, and I'm like, you got that price at 100. The market on that is 50. You got the price 200. The market on that's 500. Okay, hey, I'll take that. Like imagine it's just next level. Anytime you put a sticker price on something, it's always wrong. The prices change too much for it to be to market. It's not as efficient as stocks, this and that. So big shout for Katie. I know you guys have been developing that for a long time. Awesome sort of way to do that.
The future is here, Zach, and we are very old, and we're gonna have to adapt to it. But that's really cool. An app that automatically scans like bulk amounts of cards. Like scanning one card is cool, but to do it like in real time with a whole bunch of them all at the same time, that's awesome.
Graded and raw, like. That's sick. Like
that's sick.
I hope the prices are accurate. That's the only
Oh, you gotta pay someone to make sure those prices are accurate. That's a very important job right there. So all right, our final section of the podcast this week, because we only had one viewer question from last week's podcast, so we'll just bank that question and we'll pick up on it when we get a couple more for next week. So as always, if you want your questions answered, leave them in the comment box below of this video. So Collector's Corner is a segment where we get to showcase stuff that's in our personal collection. It could have been stuff that's been in there a long time or some recent pickups. And usually I veer toward the vintage. But I think we've talked about this a lot of times before, like when you're really into hobbying, you really enjoy it, you just buy stuff that you like. And most cases, if you like it, other people like it. And that's probably the best way if you want to quote unquote invest in this hobby. But my cards are kind of just basic cards, man. I have a Champion's Path, Secret Rare Charizard, and then I have the shiny version of the VMAX Charizard as well. These cards they're just honestly just 2 Charizards. I actually have. Do I have the other one? Oh, I do have the third one here. I picked them up all around the same time, just because I wanted all 3 variants. They're just bread and butter cards. I just thought when Champion's Path was released, I just thought, man, that's a sick artwork. They have a lot of variants, alt variants, alt artworks, as we like to say. And I just got them like $200 each, around there at the most, not breaking the bank, but I wanted them just because I thought they looked cool and I enjoyed them. And that is it for my segment of Collector's Corner.
You have a favorite?
I'm leaning towards the shiny Charizard. The Rainbow Charizard is really cool, but for some reason, once you go black, you just don't go back. So I think the shiny variant is probably my favorite one.
Well said, Tetra. Well said. So I, as you may guess, have some sort of error card today that I'm pretty excited about. It is a type of card that I've looked for a long time. I find on holos of this quite a bit. And there's one holo that exists that is kind of cool, but I've never seen this sort of before. It popped up. I wasn't sure if it was real. I had to get it graded to make sure it was real. And so I'm going to just kind of preface this a little bit and show you guys a different card first. So this card is a Clefairy, first at base, 9/5. And I just want you to see how yellow those borders are on the Clefairy. This is a normal Clefairy. It's not an error card, because when I show you this next card, I want you to see how different this is. So this is a gold border shadowless Hitmonchan. And so you can kind of just see the border difference right there. Like quite literally like a gold border. So this card exists for Machamp with the first edition non-shadow or the shadowed version. And you will find some non-holos with gold border. But this card is just super just gold border. It's just absolutely nuts. Like how like see if I can pull it back here. Like it's so crazy. So I've only ever seen Machamps. The fact that it's shadowless, as a lot of people speculate, first edition was, and a lot of people speculate shadowless was one print run, and then they took half the cards and made them first edition. So shadowless first edition are really just the same print run. So this would have been one of the first cards made for Pokemon, and that sick award. It is a 6. It is a lower grade, but the fact that this exists just suggests that maybe there's a chance that exists. Maybe since it's a theme deck card, maybe it's a Ninetales. There's a Ninetales that exists, or Gyarados or something like that. So I think that's just utterly so cool, and couldn't believe one exists and two it's real. Like I didn't think it'd be real.
That's pretty cool. One day, maybe you'll surprise me with a non-air card. Maybe one day.
Oh my gosh, it'll be a Jolteon.
It'll be a Jolteon of some sort.
Mhm.
All right.
It's
And with
electric.
that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this episode of Next Gen TCG podcast. We thank you for joining us. As always, like I said, leave your viewer questions coming up. Zach and I have some pretty exciting news coming up in the next couple weeks that we would like to announce to you. So you can look forward to that. But as always, thank you guys so much for your support, sticking with us, being patient with us. And we will see you guys in the next episode.